Hi, this is LysElla.com, and I'm your host for the Service Sales Method weekly broadcast. Welcome. Today's topic is non-sleazy sales. This is a question that I get over and over again, that I get frequently enough that I thought that it was time that I just answered this question straight out. And that is, what can I do to not do sleazy sales, to not do the hard sell? Or another version of this question is, I hate selling. And when I ask why, it's because it feels slimy. It feels like a used car salesman. It feels like I'm trying to push something on somebody. So, quick answer to how can I do sales? I need to do sales. I want to do sales, whatever the situation is, but I don't want it to feel yucky. The short answer is concentrate entirely on your client, your customer. Serve them, do what they need at this point in your history with them. Do not go into the interaction thinking about what you need. So there's the short answer. Focus on your client, serve them. Do not come from a place of, I need to make a sale, or I need to make this sale to pay my rent this month, for example. That's, as Steve Chandler calls it, needy is creepy. And it sure is. When you get needy with people, they can sense it. They can really, really sense it. So don't go there. So that's the short answer there. Looking down at some notes here. So let me give you a few tips of ways that you can not be needy and ways to focus your attention on your client. So first would be, when you are going into a conversation or a presentation with someone, do not start the conversation with your pitch. Do not try to sell someone on your service or product. There is nothing more off-putting than, hi, nice to meet you, or yeah, oh, thanks for sitting down with me. Let me tell you all about our financial services and how good it's going to be for you. Nope, not interested. That person has already shut off. Instead, start with questions. And in some ways, it doesn't really matter what questions, as long as they are truthful and curious questions that lead to you getting to know what that person really wants and needs. And I know you've probably heard this in a million sales trainings, and it's because it's true. It's figuring out what the person really wants or needs. And only after you have figured that out can you have a chance of knowing whether or not your services might be of service to that person. But I'm going to get to that later on here in another tip. For now, this first tip is, so do not start the conversation with your sales pitch, with your sales spiel. You should not be the one talking. You should be asking questions of the person across the table from you. To give you some actual language to use. So one question could be, or just kind of statement that's prodding somebody to talk would be, so tell me more about the problem that you're trying to solve. So let's say this is a financial advisor. You're a financial advisor. You might ask that question, and the person may say, well, I'm not trying to solve any problem. I'm fine. Okay, great. So tell me why you would consider even having a financial advisor, because some people don't really even need a financial advisor. Why do you want one, or why are you even considering having one? Some sort of non-threatening question like that just opens up the conversation to that person starting to explain in their own words, from their point of view, why they're even talking to you. Because you have to remember that somebody taking the time out of their day to sit down with you, to have a conversation face-to-face or by phone or even by email or text, there is some reason that they believe that you might be able to solve a problem for them. And they may not see it quite that way, as I have a problem and you might be able to solve it, but that's your job at the beginning of a relationship, is to figure out if there is a problem or a need or a desire or a want that possibly you could help that person with. So these are the questions that you're going to want to ask in order to determine what that is. One other question that you could ask is, so what do you think? Take this example of the financial advisor, and I'm sitting across the table from a potential client and saying, so, knowing what you know about financial planning at the moment, and what you know about financial advisors, what you know about me, what you know about other people that you're talking with, what do you think would be helpful to you? Just ask that question. See what they have to say. Their answer will tell you so much about what they need and what they don't need. They may say something about, well, I see that everybody has advice for me, but they just sound so condescending. Whoa, big flag for you. This person cares to be talked to in a certain way. You may be the person for them, and that may be the difference between you and another financial advisor, is your way of speaking to this person. They may bring up, oh, actually I've had financial advisors in the past, but they always seemed really just kind of standoffish, and they never really would talk to me. They'd never pick up the phone. They'd never take the time to explain things to me. Great, bingo. For this person, you can see that that's something they want and need. Listen, ask questions. You can make a list. I gave you 2 to ask. You can make a list for yourself of questions to ask your client. Basically, think of it as interview your client to find out what it is that they're needing and wanting. Let them sell themselves, because they will figure out if you are the right person or if you have the right service for them or not. But your job is to ask the questions to help them uncover that answer. So another tip, so if you start your conversations that way, not pitching at all, but asking questions, that's really going to change the tenor of your conversations and where the sales conversation goes. Second tip then would be, when they mention those areas where you might be able to help. So in this example of the financial advisor, where I said that you're asking the person about knowing what this person knows, what do they think would be helpful to them at the moment, or what do they think they want to avoid? And they give you some answer. And in my example, one of these answers was, oh, well, all these people are giving me advice, but they're very condescending. And you're thinking, oh my gosh, my clients tell me that I'm really kind, and that I talk in a way that they can understand, and that I never put them down, that they always feel very respected. So great. You may be thinking, oh, great, flag, I just understood that, and I want to tell you all about how awesome I am to work with because I'm not condescending. Hold off. This is tip number 2, is hold off on jumping in and wanting to, again, sell your service or yourself. Make a mental note of it, or take a physical note if you'd like, but resist the urge to jump in and sell at that point also, because they've just identified something that you're really good at, really strong at. Your other clients have told you you're good at it. You can sense there's a fit there. Hold off on that also. Okay. And then tip 3 is going to be, if you do see an area in that conversation where you think you are going to be able to help, after you make sure that that person is done talking, then you can ask a question. You can make a statement and ask a question to determine whether or not they want to know more. And that could look like something along the lines of saying, oh, great, Mary, I've been listening to you and I see some areas where I think I could be of help to you. But, that's just my assessment. Are you noticing any areas where you think I could be of help? Is there anything that you have some questions about how I work and how I interface with my clients? Those could be a couple of questions. Give the client, again, a chance to explain in their words what they are seeking from you or from somebody similar to you. And only after they explain that, or you give them that chance through asking those questions, giving them an opening again to explaining what it is that they want, then and only then can you ask, do you mind if I share some of the ideas that are going through my head about where I might be able to help? You're asking permission to share right there. And that's key. And so you'll notice this is after a long amount of conversation and you asking questions again, holding off on your sales spiel. You do not want to go there to have trusting, wonderful relationships where that person will come back to you when they're ready, where that person, if they do not choose you because you're not the right fit for whatever reason, they will refer you still to people who might be the right fit for you, because you have created a very trusting environment where you did not try to sell. What you tried to do was be of service to that person right then, right there, to figure out what that person needed, and then to really get clear on what they needed by asking them a whole bunch of questions. And then only at the end there, after you'd asked for about the 5th time in some different way, what do you need? Then and only then, if they haven't, because sometimes at this point they're asking you, they're going to be saying, so can you help me with these things? Or can I work with you? That's perfect. That's absolutely perfect. If you have elicited enough from them to where they're asking you if they can work with you, then you have mastered this course. You have mastered the service sales method. And I'd encourage you to test that out, to go all the way to where you're not even presenting anything, where maybe you stop at the explanation where they're explaining to you what it is that they need. And then you don't do anything more and say, great, it sounds like you know what you need. Do you have any more questions for me? That is the ultimate in the service sales method. If they have no more questions for you, then you thank them. You say, great, well, thank you for your time. You have my number if you need me. If they do have a question, right there is where they'll ask you, well, so if I wanted to work with you, what would that look like? And that's beautiful, because then that person has enough trust, has built up enough trust, or you've built enough trust up with them to where they are asking you, like, hey, so I'm basically kind of interested. So can you tell me more? That's the question coming from them. What I explained a little bit earlier is you asking permission to present something, to present some thoughts about how you could work together, which is not bad. But I believe that the ultimate level of service the service sales method is really you asking, or them asking you to work with them. Because then what has happened at that point is that you have simply been serving them. You've been answering their questions. You've been giving them bits of advice. You've been patient. You've been there. You've been open. And only when they're ready have you then responded to, oh, I want to work with you? Oh, great. Yeah. Well, if we wanted to work together, here are the ways that I work with my clients. And then you can tell them about what you see your relationship and your service looking like, what the fee is, etc., all of that. But so what I hope you can see through these 3 tips is a very different flow of a sales process, of a sales conversation or sales conversations, plural, than the traditional, let me give you my lock, stock, and barrel presentation. Here it is, it fits everybody, bleh, there you go. So do you want to buy? You'll get some people buying that way, but definitely much higher percentage if you take the time to cultivate the relationship and take the time to ask the questions so that that person can get comfortable, can figure out when they're ready to ask you for something, namely your services. So those are 3 tips for the service sales method in how to do sales in a way that is not slimy or sleazy. If you had this question initially, this question of how to do sales that are not slimy or sleazy, hopefully these tips gave you somewhere to go, something to practice in regards to that question. Now, other questions that you may have, for example, might be, well, what if I really need to sign this client? What if I need to sign this client to make my numbers, or I need to sign this client in order to pay my rent? I said I'd get back to this one, right? If you need to sign a client because your rent depends on it, your finances depend on it, you need to go get a job that pays you some amount of income while you are building whatever this service, this business is that you're building, or these sales that you're selling, the services that you're selling. And I say that because of the needy is creepy idea. And that is that you reek of neediness if you are selling and pushing because you need the income. People can sense it. It's just true. That's all there is to it, is people can sense it. You don't have to believe me on that one. You can test it out. I think you'll get very different reactions if you are using the sales service method where you are just serving and waiting for people to come to you to ask. But it does take a while to develop your clientele that way. And you may need to go just do some odd job in the meantime to have some income if that's a concern to you. So that might be one question that you had. Let's see. Another question that sometimes comes up after somebody has asked me about how do I not do sleazy sales is, how do I make myself believe that my service is worth the asking price? I get really nervous about whatever my fee is, for example. Every time I say my fee, my stomach turns. Or even, I know that my fee needs to be higher, but I just can't get myself to ask for the higher fee. If that's one of your questions, here's a tip. Just don't believe your inner critic voice. Whatever is coming up there, tell it, thanks for the information. I hear you. I hear you talking about, oh, are you sure you're worth that much? Are you sure your services are worth that much? Nobody's ever going to say yes to that. Whatever that little voice is saying, say, hi, I see you, I acknowledge you, and I'm not going to pay attention to you right now. I'll talk to you at 8 p.m. tonight. Put him or her voice over on the side and go talk to him or her at 8 p.m. tonight or at whatever other time you choose. And that is a very real tactic for shushing the voices in our heads, which almost everybody has until you practice not having them. And one of the ways to not have that voice is to tell it that you're going to talk to it later. And at the moment, and you have to make this up ahead of time, is if you know, for example, that you get kind of queasy knots in your stomach when you're about to say what your fee is, or again, let's say you really know you need to be asking for $500 an hour. Let's say yours is an hourly fee for something, but every time you're about to say it, you just say, and my fee is $400 an hour, and you just kick yourself inside. But there's that voice there. You need to know ahead of your next meeting with a client, what are you going to be saying to yourself instead of, oh, you can't possibly ask that, blah, 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 blah. Rehearse this with yourself. Rehearse it in front of the mirror. My fee is $500 an hour. And my fee is $500 an hour. Whatever it is, rehearse it ahead of time. See if there's anything going off in your head, little voice that you need to talk to, acknowledge, and set aside for later. But rehearse it so that you've actually verbally said it out loud in front of a mirror. Say it 10 times. Say it out loud 10 times. I'm not joking. Say it in front of a mirror. There is something to it. There's something that helps our brain, helps the words actually come out. And then notice if there's anything going on in your head saying, oh my gosh, I won't be able to get that out, or what are you doing asking for that high of a fee? Oh, you're not worth it, whatever. Park the voice, park it at the 8 p.m. I'll talk to you at 8 p.m. Oh, what if the person says no? If they say no, great. I love it. Because then you've put out your fee that you know you should be charging, and somebody has said no to it. And you know what? You haven't died. And that is the most fun point that you can get to in getting past little voices in your head, is forcing yourself to go out there and say your fee, for example, what you know you should be charging, what you know you're worth, and getting a no, and then realizing, great, you know what? My world did not fall apart. That's pretty awesome. So that's how you'd go about asking for whatever your fee needs to be, in a way that at first your stomach may be churning. It may be uncomfortable, physically uncomfortable at first, but I guarantee you that if you practice it out loud first and then get out there, say it to a client, who knows, the client may say yes, and you may have one of those wins in your pocket, and they may say no, and that's an even bigger win. Okay, so another question you may have is, what if I'm scared of hearing no? And this is so common. This is so very common, to be scared of no. And here's where it comes from, in my opinion, is we equate yes to being liked and to our sense of self and fulfillment. And if you can understand that yes does not mean you are a great person, you are a valid professional. It doesn't mean you are better than Joe over there who is in a similar profession. It doesn't mean that you're worse than. All it means is yes or no, that person is ready to work with you or not. That's all it means. It means absolutely nothing about you. If you can really take that in, then you can understand in a different way what no means, and you can detach it from your self-worth, which is really what this comes down to, is if you're winning a sale is what defines your self-worth, do some searching, do some internal looking at what that means to you. It should really not be about that. Your self-worth should be defined by how you serve other people.